The alarm clock screamed at 5:30 a.m., but Maya Rodriguez was already awake. She had been staring at the ceiling for the past 20 minutes, calculating numbers in her head. Rent was due in 5 days. Her brother's medication cost $300 this week. The electricity bill sat unopened on her kitchen table because she already knew what it said. Maya rolled out of her cramped studio apartment bed and looked at herself in the cracked bathroom mirror. Dark circles had become permanent residents under her brown eyes. Her hands, once soft from years of careful piano practice, now bore small cuts and calluses from restaurant work. At 24, she felt like she was living someone else's life. 3 years ago, everything had been different. Maya had been in her second year at Juilliard, one of the most prestigious music schools in the world. Her professors called her gifted. Other students looked up to her technique. She practiced 8 hours a day and dreamed of performing in Carnegie Hall. Her parents had sacrificed everything to pay her tuition, working double shifts and taking loans they couldn't afford. Then came the phone call that changed everything. Her father had been working construction to pay for her education when scaffolding collapsed. The accident left him paralyzed from the waist down. Medical bills poured in like a flood. Insurance covered some costs, but not nearly enough. Maya's mother worked 3 cleaning jobs, but barely made enough to keep food on the table. The choice had been simple and heartbreaking. Maya could stay at Juilliard and watch her family lose their home, or she could leave school and help them survive. She packed her belongings and never looked back. Her piano, a beautiful upright that had been her graduation gift, was the first thing they sold. Now Maya worked at the Grand View Country Club, one of the fanciest places in the city. Rich people came here to play golf, eat expensive food, and show off their wealth to each other. The pay was decent, especially with tips, but the work was exhausting. Maya often pulled double shifts, serving breakfast to early golfers and staying, until the last dinner guest left. Her younger brother, Diego, needed medication that cost more than most people's rent. He had been born with a rare condition that required constant treatment. Without the medicine, he would get worse. Maya had watched. Her parents struggled to afford his care for years. Now, it was her responsibility. The other servers at Grandview knew Maya's story. They knew she had studied music and left school for her family. Some admired her sacrifice. Others pitied her. A few whispered that she was crazy for giving up such an opportunity. Maya tried not to listen to any of them. The country club had a beautiful grand piano in the main dining room. It was a Steinway, worth more than Maya would earn in 5 years. Sometimes, when the restaurant was empty and she was cleaning tables, Maya would stop and stare at it. Her fingers would twitch, remembering the feel of keys beneath them. But she never touched it. Employees weren't allowed to use club property, and Maya couldn't afford to lose her job. Tonight was different, though. Tonight was the annual charity gala, the biggest event of the year. Rich people from across the city would come dressed in expensive clothes to eat expensive food and donate money to causes that made them feel good about themselves. The serving staff had been preparing for weeks. Maya arrived at work 2 hours early to help set up. The main ballroom had been decorated, with white flowers and golden lights. Round tables covered in silk tablecloths filled the space. At the center of it all sat the grand piano, polished until it gleamed like a black mirror. "Maya, you're working the VIP section tonight," said Jennifer, the head server. "Big tips, but difficult customers. Think you can handle it?" Maya nodded. She had worked VIP before. Rich people could be demanding, but their tips made the extra stress worthwhile. Tonight she needed every dollar she could earn. As guests began arriving, Maya put on her professional smile and got to work. Men in expensive suits and women dripping with jewelry filled the tables. They talked loudly about their businesses, their vacations, and their achievements. Maya moved between them like a shadow, refilling wine glasses and clearing plates. At table 7 sat Richard Blackstone, a tech millionaire whose face regularly appeared on magazine covers. Maya recognized him from the newspapers. He was worth over $200 million and owned several companies. He was also known for his cruel sense of humor and love of making others uncomfortable for his own entertainment. Blackstone held court at his table, telling stories that made his guests laugh too loudly. Maya served him quietly, trying to stay invisible. Rich people often treated servers like furniture, and that was fine with her. The less attention she drew, the better. But staying invisible became impossible when Tom, one of the other servers, made a casual comment while refilling. "Water glasses. You know Maya here used to go to Juilliard," Tom said, thinking he was being friendly. "She was studying piano before she started working here." Maya felt her stomach drop. She saw Blackstone's head turn toward her, his eyes lighting up with interest. This was exactly the kind of attention she didn't want. "Juilliard?" Blackstone said loudly, his voice carrying across nearby tables. "Our little waitress went to Juilliard?" How fascinating. The way he said little waitress made Maya's skin crawl. There was something mean in his tone, like a cat that had spotted a mouse. "It was a long time ago," Maya said quietly, hoping to end the conversation. But Blackstone wasn't finished. "A long time ago? How long could it have been? You're what, 25? What happened? Did you flunk out?" Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks. Other guests at nearby tables had started listening. "I left for personal reasons," she said, keeping her voice steady. "Personal reasons," Blackstone repeated with a smirk. "Let me guess. Not good enough? Couldn't keep up with the real talent?" His table companions chuckled, and Maya felt smaller with each laugh. She wanted to defend herself, to explain about her father's accident and her brother's illness, but she couldn't. These people wouldn't understand sacrifice. They had never had to choose between their dreams and their family's survival. "I should get back to work," Maya said, turning to leave. "Oh, don't be so sensitive," Blackstone called after her. "I'm just curious about our educated server. It's not every day you meet a failed musician." The word failed hit Maya like a slap. She had given up her dreams, yes, but she hadn't failed. She had made the hardest choice of her life to save the people she loved most. That wasn't failure. That was sacrifice. But standing in that ballroom, surrounded by people who had never known real struggle, Maya felt the weight of everything she had lost. The music that used to fill her days, the future she had planned, the person she used to be. She took a deep breath and continued serving, but she could feel Blackstone watching her. Something told her this conversation wasn't over. Rich men like him didn't let go of entertainment opportunities easily. Maya had. No idea that in the next hour, her carefully hidden past would be dragged into the spotlight in the most humiliating way possible. Maya tried to focus on her work, but she could feel Richard Blackstone's eyes following her around the VIP section. Every time she approached his table, the conversation seemed to pause. His guests would look at her with a mixture of curiosity and amusement, like she was some kind of interesting zoo animal. "More wine, sir?" Maya asked politely, holding the bottle steady despite her trembling hands. "Of course," Blackstone said, but he didn't look away from her face. "Tell me, Maya, was it? What exactly did you study at Juilliard? I'm genuinely curious about our talented staff." The way he emphasized talented made it clear he didn't believe she had any talent at all. Maya poured the wine carefully, hoping her silence would end the conversation. "She's being modest," said Mrs. Henderson, one of Blackstone's dinner companions. "I heard from my friend who works here that Maya was actually quite good. Apparently she had to leave because of some family emergency." Maya wanted to thank Mrs. Henderson for defending her, but she also wished the woman would stop talking. She could see Blackstone's interest growing with each new piece of information. "A family emergency," Blackstone mused. "How tragic. So you gave up your dreams to become a waitress. That must be difficult to live with." There was fake sympathy in his voice that made Maya's skin crawl. She had dealt with enough wealthy customers to recognize when someone was playing games with her. "I'm happy to help my family," Maya said simply. "Of course you are," Blackstone replied. "But don't you ever wonder what might have been? Don't you ever regret walking away from all that training?" Maya finished pouring the wine and stepped back. "Excuse me, I need to check on my other tables." But as she walked away, she heard Blackstone talking to his companions in a voice just loud enough for her to overhear. "Poor girl probably wasn't cut out for it anyway," he said. "Juilliard takes anyone these days if they pay enough. Real talent is rare." Maya's steps faltered. She wanted to turn around and tell him exactly how wrong he was. She wanted to explain that she had been accepted on scholarship, not because her family paid. She wanted to describe the hours she had spent practicing, the calluses on her fingertips, the way music had flowed through her like breathing. Instead, she kept walking. The evening continued, and Maya hoped the piano conversation was forgotten. She served the main course, cleared plates, and refilled drinks. The charity auction began, with rich people bidding thousands of dollars on vacation packages and art pieces. Maya watched from the side of the room, calculating how much money was being thrown around. One weekend trip to Paris cost more than she made in 6 months. During a break between auction items, Blackstone stood up from his table. Maya noticed he had been drinking more than usual, his face flushed with wine and self-importance. "Ladies and gentlemen," Blackstone announced loudly, his voice cutting through the chatter, "I have an idea for some additional entertainment tonight." The auction host paused, microphone in hand. Other guests turned to look at Blackstone with interest. He was known for making big donations at these events, so people paid attention when he spoke. Maya felt a cold chill run down her spine. "We have been served tonight by some very interesting staff," Blackstone continued, his eyes scanning the room until they found Maya. "One server in particular has a fascinating background. Maya, would you join us for a moment?" Maya froze. Every eye in the ballroom turned toward her. The auction host looked confused but gestured for her to come forward. Maya's manager, standing near the kitchen doors, gave her an encouraging nod, clearly not understanding what was happening. Maya had no choice but to walk to the front of the room, her face burning with embarrassment. She could hear whispers starting among the guests. "Maya here," Blackstone announced, "is a former Juilliard student. Apparently, she studied piano before life led her to serve us tonight." The whispers grew louder. Maya saw some guests looking at her with pity, others with curiosity. A few seemed excited by the unexpected entertainment. "Now, I don't know about the rest of you," Blackstone continued, "but I find it hard to believe that someone with real musical talent would end up waiting tables. So I have a proposal." Maya's heart was pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. Blackstone gestured grandly toward the beautiful grand piano at the center of the ballroom. "Our talented server claims to be a pianist. I think we should put that claim to the test. Maya, why don't you play something for us?" The room erupted in excited murmurs. Some guests clapped politely. Others pulled out their phones, sensing that something interesting was about to happen. Maya stood frozen, unable to speak. This was her worst nightmare. She hadn't touched a piano in over a year. Her technique was probably rusty. Her confidence was completely shattered. And now she was being asked to perform in front of hundreds of the city's wealthiest and most influential people. I don't think that's appropriate," Maya managed to say. "I'm working tonight." "Oh, don't be modest," Blackstone said with false kindness. "I'm sure your manager won't mind. This is for charity, after all, and I tell you, what, I'll make it worth your while." He reached into his jacket and pulled out his wallet, making a show of counting bills. $500 if you can play something impressive," he announced. "But," he paused for dramatic effect, "if you waste our time with amateur nonsense, well, I think the club deserves better than servers who lie about their qualifications." The threat was clear. play well and earn money she desperately needed, play poorly or refuse to play at all and lose her job. Maya looked around the room. Some faces showed genuine interest in hearing her play. Others displayed the kind of cruel anticipation people get when they sense someone is about to be humiliated. Her manager looked worried now, finally understanding that this wasn't going to end well. "Come now," Blackstone pressed. "Surely a Juilliard graduate isn't afraid of a little performance." The way he said "graduate" made it clear he knew she hadn't finished school. He was enjoying every moment of her discomfort, and his wealthy friends were eating it up. Maya thought about her brother Diego lying in his hospital bed. She thought about her father in his wheelchair, unable to work because he had sacrificed his body for her education. She thought about her mother, cleaning office buildings at night to pay for medicine. Then she looked at the piano. It was beautiful, perfectly tuned, waiting. For 3 years, she had avoided touching any piano because it hurt too much. It reminded her of everything she had lost, everything she had given up. But now, standing in front of these people who thought they knew her story, Maya felt something stirring inside her. It wasn't confidence exactly. It was something deeper, something that had been sleeping for a long time. "All right," she said quietly. The room fell silent. Blackstone smiled triumphantly, clearly expecting her to embarrass herself. He had no idea what he had just awakened. Maya walked slowly toward the piano, her heart pounding but her steps steady. She was about to remind everyone in this room, including herself, who she really was. Maya walked toward the grand piano, like she was walking to her own execution. Every step felt heavy, every breath shallow. The ballroom had fallen completely silent, except for the soft click of her work shoes on the marble floor. 300. Pairs of eyes followed her movement, some curious, others waiting for a disaster. When she reached the piano bench, Maya stopped and stared down at the keys. They were perfect, pristine white and black rectangles that seemed to glow under the ballroom lights. She hadn't been this close to a piano in over a year. The last time had been in her tiny apartment when she sold her own instrument to pay for her brother's medicine. Her hands were shaking. Maya clasped them together, trying to steady herself. Behind her, she could hear soft whispers and the occasional cough. Someone's chair squeaked. A wine glass clinked against a table. The normal sounds of a fancy dinner party, except everyone was watching her instead of talking to each other. "Anytime you're ready," Blackstone called out from his table. His voice was filled with fake encouragement, but Maya could hear the smugness underneath. He was expecting her to fail spectacularly. Maya sat down on the bench and immediately felt strange. It had been so long since she sat at a piano that her body had almost forgotten the position. She adjusted her posture, rolled her shoulders back, and placed her feet properly on the floor. Muscle memory began to kick in, reminding her of thousands of hours spent in practice rooms. She lifted her hands and let them hover over the keys without touching them. This was the moment of truth. In a few seconds, she would either prove that she still had the talent that once defined her entire identity, or she would confirm what Blackstone and probably half the room already believed, that she was just a failed music student pretending to be something she wasn't. Maya closed her eyes and took a deep breath. In that moment, she wasn't thinking about the crowd behind her or the cruel millionaire who had set this trap. She wasn't thinking about the money or the threat to her job. Instead, she thought about her brother Diego. She remembered the day she left Juilliard. Diego had been in the hospital, and she went to visit him before catching the bus home. He was only 15 then, scared and sick, with tubes and wires connected to his small body. When she told him she was leaving school to help the family, he had started crying. "But music is who you are," he had whispered. "You can't just stop being yourself." Maya had promised him that she wasn't stopping forever, just pausing. She told him that music would always be part of her, even if she wasn't playing professionally. At the time, she believed it. But as months turned into years, and her fingers grew stiff from lack of practice. That promise felt more and more like a lie. Now, sitting in front of this beautiful instrument, Maya realized that Diego had been right. Music wasn't just something she did, it was who she was. And no amount of hardship or sacrifice could change that fundamental truth. Maya opened her eyes and placed her fingers on the keys. The first notes of Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2 filled the silent ballroom like thunder rolling across a clear sky. Maya had chosen this piece deliberately. It wasn't just beautiful, it was incredibly difficult. Only skilled pianists could handle its complex passages and emotional depth. If she was going to prove herself, she might as well do it with something that would leave no doubt about her abilities. The opening melody poured from the piano with such power and precision that several people in the audience gasped audibly. Maya's technique was flawless, her fingers dancing across the keys with the confidence of someone who had spent years mastering this exact piece. But more than technical skill, there was emotion in every note. Pain, sacrifice, hope, and determination, all wove together in the music. As the piece progressed, something magical happened in the ballroom. The whispers stopped completely. Phone conversations that had been happening quietly in corners ended mid-sentence. Waiters stopped clearing tables and stood still to listen. Even the kitchen staff crept out to hear what was happening. Maya lost herself in the music. For the first time in 3 years, she wasn't Maya the struggling waitress or Maya the family sacrifice. She was Maya the musician, the artist, the person she had been born to be. Her body remembered every technique her teachers had drilled into her. Her fingers found passages she hadn't played in years with perfect accuracy. The difficult sections that would challenge even professional pianists flowed from her hands like water, rapid scales that sounded like silver bells, deep, rumbling bass, notes that you could feel in your chest, delicate, melodic lines that could make you cry if you weren't careful. In the audience, people were having physical reactions to the music. Some wiped away tears they didn't realize were falling. Others sat with their mouths slightly open, shocked by what they were witnessing. A few pulled out their phones to record, understanding instinctively that they were seeing something extraordinary. At his table, Richard Blackstone's smug expression had completely disappeared. His face had gone pale, then red, then pale again. He looked like someone who had just realized they had made a terrible mistake. The cruel joke he had planned to humiliate Maya was backfiring in the most spectacular way possible. Maya built toward the piece's climactic section, her entire body moving with the music. This wasn't just playing, it was performing at the highest level. Every person in that room could feel the raw talent and years of training that had gone into developing this skill. They could also feel the emotion behind it. The pain of dreams deferred, the strength it took to sacrifice everything for family, and the joy of rediscovering a part of herself she thought was lost forever. As she approached the final passages, Maya opened her eyes and looked out at the audience for the first time since she began playing. What she saw took her breath away. Every single person in the ballroom was completely focused on her. Many were crying openly. Others looked stunned, as if they couldn't believe what they were hearing. Near the back of the room, Maya spotted a woman with silver hair who was leaning forward in her chair with intense interest. Something about the woman's posture and attention level was different from the other guests. She looked like someone who really understood music, not just someone who attended charity galas for social reasons. Maya played the final notes with everything she had left. The last chord rang through the ballroom and slowly faded into perfect silence. For several long seconds, nobody moved or made a sound. The only noise was Maya's slightly heavy breathing and the subtle hum of the air conditioning. Then the applause began. It started with one person clapping slowly, then another. Then suddenly the entire ballroom erupted in thunderous applause. People leaped to their feet, giving her a standing ovation that seemed to go on forever. Some were shouting, "Bravo!" Others were still wiping away tears. Maya sat on the piano bench, overwhelmed by the response. She had forgotten what it felt like to move people with music. She had forgotten the incredible connection between performer and audience, the way a good performance could make strangers feel like they understood your soul. But most importantly, she had remembered who she really was underneath all the sacrifice and struggle. She was a musician. She always had been, and she always would be. The applause seemed to last forever. Maya stood up from the piano bench on shaking legs, her heart pounding from both the performance and the overwhelming response. She had never experienced anything quite like this, even during her best recitals. At Juilliard, the applause had been polite and appreciative. This was different. This was 300 people who had just witnessed something they would never forget. As the clapping finally began to die down, Maya noticed that people weren't returning to their seats. Instead, they were moving toward her. A small crowd formed around the piano, with guests eager to speak to her. "That was absolutely incredible," said Mrs. Henderson, the woman who had defended Maya earlier. Tears were still visible in her eyes. "I've attended this gala for 15 years, and I've never heard anything so beautiful." Other guests pressed forward with similar comments. A man in an expensive suit shook her hand and said he got goosebumps during the performance. A young woman about Maya's age said the music made her think of her own grandmother, who had passed away recently. But the most important person in the approaching crowd was the silver-haired woman Maya had noticed during her performance. She moved through the other guests with quiet authority, and when she reached Maya, the crowd seemed to part naturally for her. "My name is Carmen Vasquez," the woman said, extending her hand. "I'm the director of the City Symphony Orchestra." Maya's breath caught in her throat. The City Symphony Orchestra was one of the most respected musical organizations in the country. Carmen Vasquez was a legend in the classical music world, known for discovering and nurturing exceptional talent. "Ms. Rodriguez," Carmen continued, using Maya's last name with respect, "I need to ask you a very important question. Why aren't you performing professionally?" Maya stammered, unsure how to explain her situation. My family needed help. I had to leave school." Carmen nodded with understanding. "Family comes first. I respect that choice, but talent like yours doesn't come along often. I've been directing orchestras for 30 years, and what I just witnessed was extraordinary. Not just technically perfect, but emotionally powerful. You didn't just play that piece, you lived it." Maya felt tears starting to form in her eyes. It had been so long since someone in the music world had recognized her abilities. "I'd like to offer you something," Carmen said. "Our principal pianist is taking a year-long sabbatical starting next month. We need someone who can handle solo performances with the orchestra. The position pays well, very well. Would you be interested in auditioning?" Maya couldn't believe what she was hearing. A position with the City Symphony Orchestra would completely change her life. The salary would be enough to support her family and continue her brother's treatments. Yes, Maya managed to say. "I would love to audition." Carmen smiled and handed Maya a business card. "Call my office tomorrow. We'll set something up immediately." As Carmen walked away, other people continued approaching Maya. A man introduced himself as a talent agent and handed her his card. A woman who owned several music venues said she would love to book Maya for performances. Someone else mentioned a recording contract. Maya felt overwhelmed by all the attention. 6 months ago, she had been invisible, just another server bringing rich people their food. Now these same people were treating her like a celebrity. Across the room, she noticed Richard Blackstone. He was still sitting at his table, but his entire demeanor had changed. The smug confidence was gone. Instead, he looked like someone who had just realized he had made a huge mistake. His dinner companions were ignoring him, all of them more interested in discussing Maya's incredible performance. One of his table guests, a woman in a red dress, turned to Blackstone with obvious disappointment. "Richard, that was incredibly cruel what you did to that young woman. You tried to humiliate her for your own entertainment." "I was just having a bit of fun," Blackstone mumbled, but his voice lacked conviction. "Fun?" another guest said. "You nearly cost that girl her job. Thank goodness she was able to prove herself. But what if she hadn't been able to play? What if her nerves had gotten to her? You would have ruined someone's life for a few laughs." Blackstone didn't respond. He was staring at his wine glass, probably realizing that his attempt at cruelty had backfired spectacularly. Not only had he failed to humiliate Maya, but he had also embarrassed himself in front of the city's social elite. Maya noticed several people recording parts of her performance with their phones. By the time she got home that night, she discovered that videos of her playing were already spreading across social media. One clip, showing her transition from nervous waitress to confident pianist, had been viewed over 50,000 times in just a few hours. The comments on the videos were overwhelmingly supportive. People shared their own stories of sacrifice and deferred dreams. Musicians praised her technique and emotional interpretation. Others simply said the performance had moved them to tears. But the most meaningful response came from an unexpected source. The next morning, Maya received a text from her brother Diego, who was still in the hospital. "Maya, I saw the video. You kept your promise. You never stopped being yourself. I'm so proud of you," Maya cried when she read those words. For 3 years, she had felt like she had failed Diego by giving up music. Now she realized that the sacrifice had made her stronger, and the pain had made her playing more powerful. The audition with the City Symphony Orchestra was scheduled for the following week. Maya was nervous, but excited. She borrowed a proper dress from her roommate and spent every free hour practicing on an old piano in a community center near her apartment. When audition day arrived, Maya felt more prepared than she had in years. She performed the same Rachmaninoff piece that had shocked the gala guests, along with 2 other challenging works. The orchestra committee was impressed not just with her technical skills, but with her ability to convey deep emotion through music. 3 days later, Carmen Vasquez called with the news. Maya had gotten the job. The salary was more than enough to cover all of her family's expenses. Her brother would get the best medical care available. Her parents would no longer have to work multiple jobs. For the first time in 3 years, Maya's family would be financially secure. But the money, as important as it was, wasn't the most significant change in Maya's life. She had rediscovered the part of herself that she thought was lost forever. Music filled her days again. She practiced for hours, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. She felt alive in a way she hadn't since leaving Juilliard. Maya decided to keep working at the country club for 1 more month, but not because she needed the money. She wanted to serve notice on her own terms, to finish her commitments professionally. Her manager and co-workers were incredibly supportive, celebrating her success like it was their own. On her last night at the club, Maya was surprised to see Richard Blackstone dining alone at one of the regular tables, not in VIP. He looked smaller somehow, less important. When she approached to take his order, he seemed uncomfortable. "Congratulations on your success," he said quietly. "I heard about the orchestra position." Maya looked at him for a moment before responding. "Thank you, Mr. Blackstone." "I owe you an apology," he continued. "What I did at the gala was wrong. I was trying to entertain my friends at your expense, and that was cruel." Maya nodded. "I accept your apology. She meant it. Holding on to anger wouldn't serve her now." Blackstone's cruelty had inadvertently given her the platform to showcase her talent and reclaim her dreams. 6 months later, Maya was performing regularly with the City Symphony Orchestra. Her debut performance received standing ovations and rave reviews from music critics. Several recording labels had expressed interest in working with her. The viral video from the Country Club Gala, now viewed over 5 million times, became known as the waitress who shocked the world. It inspired countless people who had given up on their dreams to consider trying again. Maya never forgot the lesson she learned that night. Sometimes the cruelest moments can become the most transformative. Sometimes being forced into the spotlight, even unwillingly, can remind you of who you really are. And sometimes, the very people who try to tear you down end up giving you the platform to rise higher than you ever imagined possible. Her brother Diego, now healthy and strong thanks to proper medical care, kept a framed photo of Maya at the piano on his bedside table. Underneath it, he had written the words she had said to him years ago. "Music will always be part of me." He was right. It always had been.